If you ask me to comment on how realistic, how achievable, what is my sense of this budget? My sense is it's a budget that is meant to service our debt obligation, and settle our recurrent obligation, expect very little or nothing on the capital side. That's how I see it. The only effort you're going to see on the capital side in 2019 is a continuation of some of the projects that have been approved in 2018 and some of the spillover into 2019. That's what is going to happen. At the end of the day, when the budget is passed and all of this thing happen, there's a likelihood that we will hurry to release funds, and then we will come back to say, look, we've released a record 1.5 trillion, the highest in the history of the country. But 1.5 trillion, go on the ground and do an inspection, you are not going to see 150 million naira project on the ground, because they're probably just clearing roads and clearing the ground. So I'm not quite convinced that the way we're running this government, the country, and I'm a bit apolitical now, I'm not talking about politics. Our structure requires that we should have devised a different medium to long-term capital expenditure plan, whereby if you know that your cycle is 4 years, and judging by the pace of budget approval, and judging by the concerns around continuity and all of that, what does it take for the government to present a 3 to 4 year? You should have a plan before coming into the country. This is the thousands of kilometers of road that we want to do. This is the kind of infrastructure we want to invest in. And you have that approved, covering about 3 to 4 years. And the only thing you need to do is to go back to the National Assembly on an annual basis, get approval for how much can be released to each of those phases. But you do all of your feasibility study and all of the planning maybe once, and continue to evaluate and continue to monitor and continue to deal with variations if it has to happen. If we don't do that, this cycle doesn't give room for meaningful development. You get into the administration, if you are the type that comes in and hit the ground running, it will take you about 6 months or thereabout to get a whole lot of things properly right, and then things start running. If you are the type that will come in and take 6 months to appoint your first cabinet, take another number of months to approve budget, and all of that, and then 1 year or thereabout into the end of your administration, you're already thinking around the next election cycle. Then you only have about 2 years effectively, to do meaningful things. Those things are impacting us negatively. And until we'll deal with it, I don't think we will have significant progress when it comes to government-led infrastructure spending. We spend a lot of time discussing how much is allocated here and there. I don't think the government, find it difficult to allocate money if the money is there. The truth is that we do not have enough to be able to do those 15 trillion or 20 trillion that Mr. Yomi spoke about. At least we have not creatively invest in things that will make that happen. 54% of our budgeted revenue is from oil. And the two key variables that drives this is staring us in the face as overly ambitious or at best unrealistic. 2.3 million barrels per day. Last year, that was also what we budgeted. And we did far less, and we know. I've had 2 comments from the president that justify the reasonableness of 2.3 million barrels. And all of them, both 2 arguments fell flat in my own face. The first is that the president said there's a 200,000 million barrels per day oil field that is supposed to start operation in 2019. It hasn't started operation as we speak. And the question I would ask is, what was driving the 2.3 million barrels per day that we did in 2018? Because that was the budget as well. So if you're telling me that the only reason why you were comfortable to put 2.3 million barrels per day as the estimate this year is that there's a 200,000 field that is going to come on stream, can you please explain to us what drove the assumption for 2.3? Because it's exactly the same number you budgeted and you never achieved it. That's one. The second one, the president said, and I have instructed the NNPC to do everything possible to deliver the number. So you didn't instruct them last year to do it. So those two arguments for me are not strong enough to inspire confidence that we will do 2.3. It was in the papers yesterday. OPEC has pegged Nigeria's daily oil production to 1.6 million barrels per day. We got an exemption some years back, ourselves and another country. I can't remember which country now, Libya. So maybe this year we will succeed in getting another waiver, but the cut is there that we have to peg it at 1.6. The price, we're budgeting at 60. Maybe currently it's probably trading a little above. As at the time we were presenting the budget, it was trading below. Now, if we achieve, let's even assume we achieve that budgeted selling price, but it's going to be so close to the benchmark. The implication is that nothing else goes to excess crude, and therefore we can't build our reserve. And if we don't build our reserve, we're likely going to have forest crisis, and we're likely going to have challenges with exchange rates. Because if you don't have the war chest to be able to defend your currency, then the naira to the dollar exchange rate will start facing challenge. So head or tail, there's a lot of issue, and if there's any summary or any recommendation or any conclusion I would probably take away from the budget is to say, look, we need to fix our revenues. We need to deal with it. It's the most critical. If we do that, we can have enough to budget. We can have enough to allocate to critical infrastructure. Otherwise, the only option left for us is to borrow. And we're already doing far more than is reasonable in terms of debt servicing. The revenue for the current year and the non-oil, almost 70% of it is to go to debt servicing and sinking fund. The current budget, just take debt servicing and take sinking fund, add it all up, about 2-point-something trillion. Compare that to your non-oil, right? It's about 70% that's going into it. So if we don't do anything to expand our revenue, and by expanding revenue, particularly the non-oil, I'm not necessarily saying introduce new taxes or tax the business community more. It could also be a medium to long-term plan of how do we invest or enable the business community to be able to generate more so that we can get more in the future. We need to let the economy grow, because taxation ultimately is paying a fraction of the wealth and prosperity of the business. If the economy is not thriving and there's no money in the economy, you can decide to multiply the number of tax collectors by 10. They will go in. Thank you so very much.